So good morning. We're going to talk about what I just mentioned first of all, and that is that a Liverpool MP is leading a call in Parliament later on today, and it's for the introduction of a law which would basically mean it would ensure that a carer has the legal right to be with a loved one in hospital or a care home. The Labour MP for Liverpool Walton, Dan Carden, is introducing a 10-minute rule bill which would enshrine in law the right of an essential care supporter across health and social care settings. Well, Diane Mayhew is a co-founder of the Merseyside-based Rights for Residents, which is now part of Care Rights UK, and she joins me now from London. A very good morning to you, Diane.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
No problem at all. Right. So tell us a bit about the law, first of all.
Well, we're calling it Gloria's Law, but the actual bill is called the Right to Maintain Contact in Health and Care Settings. But as you said, Paul, if passed, it means that any one of us, every one of us, will have the legal right to be able to support a loved one when they need it most. We're not talking about visitors, we're talking about one essential care supporter, because the care and support that they provide, it simply cannot be replicated by, staff, no matter how wonderful they are. And during the pandemic, we saw people in the most horrendous situations that had to face critical illnesses alone. And Paul, it's not age-related either. It's not just old people or middle-aged people. And I'll give you an example. My partner, Jenny, her niece, who was only 27, had her first baby in January this year. And unfortunately, there were complications, and she had sepsis, and the baby was taken away from her and into an ICU. And the baby had to have a lumbar puncture because they thought the baby had meningitis. And fortunately, this was in January this year, so her partner was able to be with her. But can you imagine that had this have happened during the pandemic, she would have had to endure this alone, and it's completely wrong. We have to make sure that now and in the future, we all have that support that we rely on. It doesn't bear thinking about that if you were diagnosed with a terminal illness, that you would have to start that journey alone and probably end that journey alone as well without the support of your husband or wife or son or daughter, that one person that you choose to be by your side when you need it most.
Yeah, Diana, I read an article about this the other day, and you were quoted in it, and you actually said many people remain locked out of their loved one's care, which is, I suppose, quite a good way of putting it. How much of this is down to lockdown and the fact that things haven't gone back to normal since then?
I think it's quite varied, to be honest, Paul, because, for example, a couple of weeks ago, somebody posted on Twitter, an old gentleman, that his wife had been taken into A&E, and he was with her in A&E, and then the nurse came in and said to him, you need to sit, and they took his wife away. And he said on this tweet, I've been her sole carer for 5 years, and I've been married to her for 52 years. I would have thought that my input into her care needs would have been vital. But what am I to know? I'm just her husband. So it is still going on. Not as much as it was during the pandemic, obviously. But every now and again, we hear that mainly in hospitals now, more so than care homes, that it varies ward to ward in the same hospital. Where some carers are allowed to be with the loved one and others are told not. And that's why we need the law, because we need transparency and we need to make sure that everyone is entitled to, humanity. It's absolutely ridiculous. And what we're calling for now, Paul, is if there's another pandemic, none of us are going to be protected because this will all happen again. So, yes, it is about now, but it's more about the future because we absolutely cannot allow this to happen again. We've learned a lot from the pandemic, and we witnessed people's deterioration, people giving up the will to live, And, we need to make sure we can't bring those precious lives back, sadly. I lost my dad, as you know. I couldn't even say goodbye to him, and nor could his wife, who had been married to for over 60 years. But we can't change that now. That's done, that's gone. But what we can do is make sure that nobody else has to ever face this awful situation again. Had my mum had been with my dad, that would have, yes, of course, I would have loved to have been there as well. But I would have known that he would have felt supported and comforted by her as he took his last breath, and that didn't happen. And I feel stuck in that time. I'll never get over it, and I don't want other people to go through it. And thank God to Dan Carden, who has been steadfast in his support. He's been personally affected himself. He understands it. And when he reads this bill, we are hoping that MPs will support it. We're getting a lot of support from MPs who have told us they're coming to the event. And I just hope they think that one day they might need to rely on this.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry for your loss, but I think you hit on a really important point there. Even if you couldn't be there, the comfort knowing your parents were together, that would have given you a lot of comfort, wouldn't it?
Definitely it would. All of us, our whole family have been traumatised by this. Because I did an interview the other day and I get too upset, but I remember having to stay up all night waiting for the phone call from the consultant. My mum couldn't deal with it, that when I think of my dad now, that's what I think of, it's not right.
No.
I should be able to remember the good times, but like I said, we have to move on. We didn't know what we know now then. And we need to make sure we put good practice in to make sure that, you, me, any one of us, it doesn't matter how famous you are, how much money you've got, how old you are, this could happen to anyone. And I urge your listeners to just consider that and think that one day it could be them.
Is it a postcode lottery at the moment? I mean, I know you said that it can even be in the same hospital, but, can you go to one part of the country and you're fine and then go to another part of the country and you are locked out, basically?
Yeah, that can still happen, but as I said, that is in the minority now. But it is still happening. I mean, Julia from John's campaign is joining us because we have an event that coincides with the 10-minute rule bill, which MPs have been invited to, and where all the campaign groups are bringing speakers with them to talk about what happened to them during the pandemic. And Julia's brought someone who is from a hospital trust in Yorkshire, and she's also brought the person who tried to help her, who worked there. So she, more than we, hears more about this, that across the country, different hospitals have different rules, and even, as I said, to the point where that can vary ward to ward. And I think, we have had meetings with people from the hospital trust, and one of the reasons that was given to us was, well, I think, because they're short-staffed, they're concerned they can't handle visitors, and we've said they're not visitors. They're an essential care supporter, and they can help the staff take the pressure off. Because when Jenny's mum was in hospital, we made sure that she took her fluids, we made sure that she ate food, and that means that while we were doing that, a member of staff could look after someone else. So we need to stop this nonsense now and work together to make sure that all of us are singing from the same song sheet for the right reasons, and that's for the residents and patients that we're all caring for.
Yeah, I was just reading an example of what we're talking about here, Diane, and it was a guy called Bruce who spent 11 days alone on a ward in the last weeks of his life. He was 82 and he had Parkinson's disease.
God.
Oh my God. 11 days on your own when you're 82 with Parkinson's disease. It's going to make such a difference, because the decline in the health will be so much quicker, won't it, as a result of not having
to give up.
Yeah.
Well, I would.
I would as well.
I'm sure you would.
I would.
What's the point? And Dan, as I said, and Dan's case is not isolated, where his dad was dying of cancer, but the hospital didn't deem it actively dying, so they couldn't get in to see him. And his mum spent the last few, weeks of her husband's life fighting to be with him. It's not right.
I just don't.
Sorry,
I don't understand. I mean, actively dying. What does
I
that?
know.
What does that even mean?
It was.
It's borderline offensive, isn't it? Really.
It is. Yeah, but basically he's not going to die today, so you can't come in, or tomorrow. We're talking about the last few weeks, days of people's lives, and it's robbing people of that precious time with the person that they've spent their life with. And I do need to point out as well, Paul, that this law, the person who is affected will be the one who chooses who they want to be their care supporter. So, it's not going to be a situation where someone will just be designated as their, it will be their choice. And for those who don't have capacity, then obviously the Mental Capacity Act will come in, or power of attorney. But we even heard at the last event, and this will shake you to the core, a lady who spoke out said that she wasn't allowed to see a mother, a 90-year-old mother who was in a care home. And then the day that she died, she got the call to say, you can come in now.
Oh.
So she was safe enough to spend time with the dead body, but not while she was alive. We have to stop this. We're in the 20th century, for goodness sake. We can't have this any longer. We have to get this law passed. It's the only way that we will get 100% protection. We're not asking for unlimited footfall if there was another pandemic. Of course we're not. We're just asking for that one person who should be seen as vital to the care as the staff are, because they are.
I'll leave it there, Diane, but I know you're down in London, so all the very best to you today down there, obviously listening to what Dan Carden says, and thank you for coming on as always.
Oh, thank you for having me, Paul. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's Diane Mayhew there, who's